What's going on, FA Nation? Justin Fensterman back with you and with another week just about concluded in the fantasy football season. Time for another Stock Watch report to talk about players trending up and down when it comes to the interest and production potential for the remainder of the fantasy football season. Got a couple of veteran quarterbacks that are certainly moving up after starting off the season with a bang, and other running backs, especially a first-round running back, not giving a first-round return when it comes to the production thus far. Let's get right to the players with the latest Stock Watch on FantasyAlarm.com. First on the rise, Tom Brady. Without having much of an effective run game, the 44-year-old Brady has been taking matters into his own hands, and he's thrown more passes than any other quarterback thus far this season, and he's been completing nearly 69% of those passes. Brady has thrown more touchdowns than any other QB thus far with 10. He hasn't thrown an interception since the first week of the season, and upcoming this week is a matchup against the Patriots, a team that he knows a hell of a lot about. And while I'm not much of a narrative guy, the way things ended between Brady and the Patriots being as poor as it did gives me a little bit more motivation and to attack the narrative, as we should expect him to be salty going into this game. Not like Tom Brady needs any more motivation, right? He's currently the top scoring fantasy football quarterback. Up next, another quarterback, Matthew Stafford. We go from one vet to another as Stafford completed over 70% of his passes so far, which is top 10 among quarterbacks who have played in at least 3 games. He's thrown 9 touchdown passes and only 1 pick. He's been a top 5 fantasy QB so far. Despite him throwing just 94 passes, he's been able to eclipse 30 fantasy points in 2 of 3 weeks in leagues that give you 6 points for a passing touchdown from quarterbacks. Only 4 other quarterbacks have thrown for more yards than Stafford, and he has a strong matchup next against Arizona. Finally on the rise, Mike Williams. Keenan Allen may have more targets than him, but Williams is certainly outperforming him in fantasy football so far. Williams has caught 22 balls for 295 yards. Cooper Kupp is the only wide receiver that has more touchdowns than Williams. He's been targeted no fewer than 9 times per game, and he scored in all 3 weeks. Williams' strong start to the season should continue as the Chargers host the Raiders next, who have allowed 72 points to be scored on them, and we saw 2 Dolphins catch double-digit passes against them in Week 3. All right, on to the fallers. Jonathan Taylor. If the one positive about Taylor through 3 weeks of the fantasy football season is that he rushed for 6.4 yards per carry against the bad Titans defense, we have a problem. Against the Seahawks and Rams the previous 2 weeks, Taylor was useless on the ground, rushing for fewer than 3.5 yards per carry in both weeks. After catching 6 of 7 targets in the passing game in the first week of the season, he's been targeted just 4 times in his last 2 games. Taylor also registered for less than 50% of the Colts snaps in both Week 2 and Week 3. Why? Nyheim Hines outsnapped Taylor on Sunday, and he has been thrown more passes his way than Taylor. After seeing his carries go from 17 to 15 down to 10 with limited production, we have every right to start worrying about this fantasy football first-round draft pick in Taylor. Up next, falling, Robby Anderson. When Sam Darnold was traded to the Panthers, it seemed like the perfect marriage for Anderson because both of them played together on the Jets. After seeing him get bailed out in Week 1 with a lone reception for a touchdown, Anderson has been targeted just 8 times in the 2 games since. While Christian McCaffrey being sidelined should help Anderson pick up a few more targets in the Panthers' passing attack, we've seen DJ Moore get heavily targeted, and the rookie Terrace Marshall Jr., who has more targets than Anderson. Being that deep threat could work against Anderson if Darnold can't find him. He's a gunslinger. Quick strikes work better for him, and Anderson is clearly the deeper option. Final faller, Kenyon Drake. Hate the Drake. Josh Jacobs has now missed 2 of 3 games this season, and since he's been out, Drake has just received 15 total carries. Not much of an improvement at all when it comes to volume with Jacobs on the field versus him being off the field. Reports are also out that Drake is having issues with pass blocking, and that could lead to him being on the field less in future games. Peyton Barber has received 26 carries since Jacobs has been out and is clearly the prioritized running back for the Raiders. Drake has been targeted at least 5 times per game and has 13 receptions, but it will be just the receptions it's looking like that fantasy players will be forced to rely on when it comes to Drake's production potential. And let's not forget, Peyton Barber is also targeted in the passing game as well. More competition, not ideal. That's the latest Stock Watch FA Nation. Keep it locked into fantasyalarm.com as we have all the news that you can use. We have all the info that's going to help you win week 4, whether it's season long or DFS or even wagering. We have you covered. That's what Fanlea's for.